Hello, how are you? Thank you for joining us today. Today's episode is with Gabriel Páez speaking with George Neary. George Neary is an activist and just a overall Renaissance person, gentleman. George, welcome to the show.
Well, what a treat! Thank you. I love to be here. It's fun to be with you, and I love this company, all the newspapers and things that they do. So it's great to be here.
Awesome. So George, just to break the ice, what's your favorite meal?
My favorite meal, well. If my mother was cooking, I'm Italian. Most people don't know that. So it would be spaghetti and meatballs.
Really?
Yes. And when I go out to dinner, even though people at an Italian restaurant, all the sophisticated, no, spaghetti and meatballs. So it's family food, got to have it.
Hey, grandma's best,
yes.
Right? So you are really been an institution here in Miami for the past couple of years, but take us back into your, your early years in George's life, and really let's tell a story of George, just so we can have it.
Well, I'm very lucky. I've had a checkered past in a good way. I'm born in Connecticut. Most people here, and Connecticut is a rare state for people to be from. Born in Hartford, Pratt & Whitney Aircraft, United Aircraft Engines. That's what we worked on in Connecticut, and went to school in New Hampshire. And then I went in the Peace Corps. I worked overseas for 3 years. I worked in the Caribbean on a little island called St. Vincent near Grenada and Barbados. And I did community development, taught school. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. I would recommend to anyone, think about the Peace Corps as a learning experience, a great experience. Then I lived in New York for 20 years. And in New York, I made a friend named Linda Kolko. And we've been friends since '75. And in 1989, she bought a building out of all places, Miami Beach. And I love telling people she had the ability to buy a 9-apartment building in 1989 for $220,000.
Wow.
So, but things changed, her plans changed, and she ended up having the building, but she couldn't move here. There were no jobs at that time. You remember, there was the hotels, everything, it was just boarded up. So, she asked me. I was in New York City. I was not loving it. So I moved to Miami Beach in September of 1991.
Okay.
And I'm a big volunteer, so I realized I'd have to learn about the apartment management business. I couldn't, so I thought, well, 2 days a week I volunteered. So one day I volunteered at the Bass Museum. And then the other day I volunteered because I'm a historian and a preservationist at Miami Design Preservation League with now former Commissioner Nancy Liebman and Matty Bauer and Michael and Dennis. And I just fell into this wonderful relationship. Nancy decided to run for commission in February. I got here in September, and they hired me in March, so I was now the executive director of this big player in Miami Beach as Miami Beach started to change and develop. And we created the South Beach, today, the historic Art Deco district, and created many of the mayors that came out of the group that I was a part of. Mayor Bauer was 3 times a mayor. David Dermer was a mayor as well. So there's just a lot of history in that organization. And then because of that background, and also we were learning about culture in Miami. Used to say you shoot a bowling ball down Lincoln Road and not find anyone there, but those days, of course, have changed. So we were beginning to make some changes culturally, and they had heard of a program called cultural tourism, and it's a person who works bringing in tourists who spend a lot of money on culture. And I was hired in 1998. I was the 3rd one in the United States. 2 of them were in California. Another one was in, I think, Texas, and then Miami. All of them were long gone, and I was still working. And I had that job, and it was wonderful. I was on the ground floor for Art Basel, helped change people's minds. And then one day, David Whitaker, my boss, came to me and said, we see this LGBT sort of happening around the country, and I think we'd like to add to your job. In those days, it was, really small. And so I was now the director of cultural tourism and LGBT marketing. And the marketing just exploded, and grew and grew and grew and grew. And so for those 20 years plus that I worked at the Convention Bureau, zero. The Bureau at City of Miami Beach and Miami-Dade County and Miami were committed to welcoming and creating the #1 destination in the United States. Now, people may not know, we have 10 events that take place in Miami all year long and in Miami Beach. So we have the Winter Party, the White Party, we have Aqua Girl, we have Outfest, which is a film festival, we have Laughing Out Loud, which is a comedy series, and the list goes on and on. We have Orgullo with Herb Sosa.
Of course, yes.
And we have so many things.
Miami Beach Pride.
Miami Beach Pride now. Well, so that folds into, we had these events, but we didn't have something for the locals. Most of these events I described and more were all for tourists.
Okay.
So we decided, Matty Bauer was the mayor, and we decided to start a committee planning for Gay Pride. So we had 10 or 12 people working on that, all volunteer, no charges for coming to the festival like many other festivals in Miami charge. It's all free and open to the public. And at the end of it, we decided to do it in April so that people could travel to Miami in April, because June, which is Pride Month, people generally go to New York or go to some other cities. So we decided, and it doesn't rain as much in April, so we decided to have it in April. And the first year, about 18 years ago, we expected 7,000 people, and we got 37,000 people.
Wow.
It was amazing. And we didn't even have barricades. And so Michael Aller, who you remember, and I were in the car,
Yes.
and people were running up and kissing us and thanking us for creating this event that they could participate in, and tourists can as well. So this past year, I think we had almost 200,000 people. So it's really grown into an amazing,
yes.
an amazing event for everyone. And, you know, just go on Ocean Drive during the parade, Gay Pride Parade. All the people on Ocean Drive are visitors and tourists waving. People have, the restaurants give them little pride flags. They're waving flags. It's so wonderful to see inclusivity from everybody, a rainbow of people, a rainbow of religions, all kinds of things happening. So we've really made our community, Miami-Dade County, the most inclusive place in Florida, a loving, supportive, and we hear that from our mayors all the time. We hear that from our elected officials. I know you're the head of a committee for Miami-Dade County, which does wonderful events as well.
Yes, I am. I'm the actual director for the LGBTQ Advisory Board for Miami-Dade County.
Yes.
So, you know, as we talk about gay tourism and all that, I mean, it goes to show you that, you know, statistical data shows that we have disposable income.
A lot.
And we do expend a little bit more. And those numbers do show, because in 2019, 1.2 million came to Miami-Dade County of the LGBTQ community.
Exactly.
And the economic impact on the local economy was of $1.7 billion with a B. So
Right.
it goes to show you that our disposable income and our willingness to really spend when we travel, and really do go a little bit further than that. So that's why it's so important, tourism here in Miami-Dade County.
Well, also, gays and lesbians, I want to give credit to the founders of so much history in Miami, because it wouldn't have been saved if it wasn't for them, or for us. And in Miami Beach, you have the historic Art Deco district, which a lot of people wanted to have be destroyed and demolished, which is now the number 2 visited destination behind the Mouse in Orlando, and then us. So a lot of folks fought to make sure that those buildings would still be here, and they are, and we're always protecting them. But it's because of the passion and the creativity that gays and lesbians have had and have, that have preserved so much of the neighborhoods, historic neighborhoods in all of Miami-Dade County.
You mentioned the Peace Corps as well. Take us back to what was like the Peace Corps in your days.
Yeah.
Were you already out then? How was it?
Well, when you're living in the Caribbean, you don't want to be out. It's a very homophobic area, especially back then. So I would say it was, you know, pretty quiet.
Okay.
When I was there, I taught secondary school.
How long were you out there?
It was 3 years.
Okay.
And 73 through 75. And I lived on St. Vincent. I said I lived in Kingstown, the capital. British in those days, very homophobic, and then the island was as well. So it wasn't something that, you know, today it's a lot different. If I was there, you know, I know there are gay people there. I taught an all-boys school. Some of the boys visited me years later in Brooklyn and came out to me, so to speak, and talked about, looking at me, and I was and even though I hadn't stated it, they were very sensitive to me and looked at me as sort of a leader for them, someone who had a successful life, who wasn't rejected, who was loved and loving, and they felt that was something they could look forward to, because around them was all negativity, but at least there was a candle there that they could look at, and would tell me that years later when they came. I lived in Brooklyn in New York, and a lot of West Indians and Caribbean folks lived there, and I would see them all the time. So it was a wonderful experience. People were very loving. St. Vincent was just beautiful, and so I have a warm place in my heart for the Caribbean people.
What was it like for you coming out back then? Were you out prior to going into the Peace Corps?
Oh yeah, well, I've always been myself, so I would say yes, but
unapologetically.
Yes, and then I said, but awesome. I didn't. If someone asked me if I was gay, I would say that I wasn't advertising in a place that wasn't welcoming. So I certainly wore my colors and did whatever I did. I didn't hide any of that. But and then as I lived in Brooklyn. There was no reason to hide anything. And so it's just I've lived my own truth, my own life forever, and that's been a credit to my family. My parents are I've recently been married, and I can't tell you
congratulations.
The avalanche of love I've gotten from everyone, including my family, my sister, my brother-in-law, everyone. They threw a party for us. It's not that I wasn't expecting that. It's just I've just been so. It's been so enjoyable to be so. I call it an avalanche of love. It's been great.
Awesome! Congratulations to both of you. So. Most recently, we've had all these laws being passed. They say that it's cyclical. What do you see coming for us next?
Well, what I see is people have to vote, and that's what has to happen. In the United States, everything comes down to voting, and a lot in our community don't vote. And so really we have to come together, and we have to be very serious and take to account those people that are trying to hurt this community as well as other communities. We're not the only ones, but African Americans in Florida have been suffering, and Hispanics, and now we hear they're all going to be put on a train and sent out of the states. So people are going to be exported. I mean, it's just such a big mess, and the only thing that can change all that is the vote. So that's the thing I want to encourage people the most, is to get out there and vote, and don't let it pass, because this is we say it all the time probably, but this is the most serious election of our whole time.
What do you envision that could make us vote? Come out and vote. How is it that you see us coming out to vote? Because we're very apathetic.
Right, I know.
We don't want to vote. It's just inconvenient. But we could do it by mail. We could do it early voting. How can we motivate?
The things are so bad, in my opinion, at the moment, that I don't know what else it will take. Maybe we need to do a campaign to really explain how bad it is, what some of the laws are like, how they are
impacting.
Yeah, how our community, but also we need to partnership with other groups that are also impacted.
Of course.
Because when you put that quilt together, now you've got an ability to overcome these horrible. Homophobes and people that just are not welcoming and inclusive. So I don't know what the answer is, other than do some amazing marketing and put in people's faces how bad it is, so that it'll cause them to vote. Because for a lot of the the immigrants, it's been said they're going to be taken home, they're going to be sent out. Yes. So there's just going to be all these things, going on. And then, so I would say is really trying to get the message across that we need to vote, and we need to vote early and often, as we say in Chicago.
Yes, and we have not only are there primaries, but there's also the general election in November. Exactly. So primaries are just as important, because there's these positions that are very important, especially here in Miami-Dade County. Probably the most important one that we're looking at is the mayor and the sheriff one.
Yes,
sheriff position, which will
I'm going tonight to an event after here for a sheriff that's one of the 22 that's running for that position.
Awesome.
So John Barrows is running, and we're going to be supporting him. Many years working in the police force, not just like some of these people who weren't even in the police force. So right. he's got all the experience and a very good and a good person. So that's what I'm doing next. That you brought it up.
Awesome. We're talking about voting and all this. Let's take a step back. Just recently, we lost George Muli. George Muli was a pioneer in the fight for equality here through SAVE. Take us to your time that you knew George and your relationship with George.
I get goosebumps now that you talk about him, because he was head of SAVE, which is an organization dedicated politically to supporting politicians, elected officials that would, would be inclusive and diverse and really interested in encouraging our community and others to work together and partner. And way back in 1977, when orange juice was a bad word for us.
Miss Anita Bryant?
Yeah, Anita Bryant. And what happened is she thought it was going to be pretty easy. It was in the beginning for her, but she led a charge to stop the Human Rights Amendment, in a sense, as we began calling it recently, but so that gays and lesbians would not have any rights.
Correct. And
it had passed thanks to Ruth Shack and some others, and then it turned out to be this big cause celeb that she ran and sang on, and I'm sure she might even regret it now, because her career ended, and she worked with so many gays and lesbians that everybody stopped working with her. The highlight of her career, I think, is getting a pie in the face.
Yes.
So we always remember
that.
But,
I recently read that she said, believe it or not, that she would do it all over again.
Oh.
So.
Well, good for her. Let's do it again. Another pie in the face.
Right. At least the race. You know.
And so George, which was a wonderful, dedicated public servant, was running this organization, and he decided with his committee and others to revive this defeated legislation and bring it back and include gays and lesbians in all the rights that everybody else has in Miami-Dade County. And the shocking thing is that it lost on first reading, which was unheard of. That never happens. People pass it so that the next one can be discussed, and it was still going to have a second reading, but the first one, and we were all. But I guess what it did was, again, I get goosebumps, was bring everyone. Bring everyone together. And so I worked at the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and we know, as you mentioned, how many gays and lesbians come to Miami, and we know the economic impact, and we're not racist, and we welcome everyone. So little by little, all of these religious groups, Baptists, no one wants to, at the time, no one was there were many people wanted to, but people who don't want to discriminate were joining, partnering, and coming together to encourage the 13 Miami-Dade commissioners to vote in favor of this. And we brought commissioners from Miami Beach, Nancy Liebman for one, and a number of the mayor, and everybody went over and spoke, heads of lots of organizations. But when we got there, they had busted all these evangelicals, and they were creating a scene. Today, you can't do that. It was because of this event. They make sure that things like that don't happen in the commission chambers anymore, where one group takes every seat and everybody else doesn't get any. So people are allotted some space, but because of that. But anyway, we ended up coming right down to the wire, and it was one vote. I think Commissioner Moss might have been the vote, and he voted in favor, and it passed by, and it's been the law of the land since that. But the sad part is, George worked so hard at making that happen, bringing the partners together, giving a face to the whole program, interviewed on so many shows. Again, Spanish speaker, so he wasn't afraid to go on Spanish TV, Spanish radio, and for the cause. And he really led the charge, and he's always to be commended for bringing us home, as they say, and changing that law. And now it's the law of the land and much more inclusive.
It was great seeing Commissioner Cohen-Higgins present his family this week
Right.
a resolution, sympathy resolution on behalf of Miami-Dade
No, it
County.
was very touching.
Yeah, and it was
nice.
very touching. It was very nice, and I'm glad we were able to participate there and help them.
Yeah, and I just want to add, we're talking about George for this one big thing, but he was there for many years, leading the fight behind the scenes for a lot of other issues, a lot of other political situations, and he gets, again, those are the things you don't hear about, the day-to-day things. But he did so many things and brought us and the community, visible with a face, and like yourself, encouraging other people to do things, run for office, take a stand, speak out, and he did all those things, and he's to be congratulated for that and remembered forever.
Yes, and may he rest in peace,
Right.
because he was great.
Great guy.
Yes, he was. We now stand at a time where things are kind of like stagnant for now, but what do you hope to see in the future with our movement? You said you said about voting. What else do you want to see, go down the road?
Well, I think people. I think a maturing of our community like settling in to who we are and running for office and getting involved in the school systems and not letting certain little things go by that then turn out to be big things. I think we need to be involved as parents. We need to be involved as teachers. We need to make sure that we're not taken advantage of again. And so I think that as people, we're not in ghettos anymore. We're not just everybody in one neighborhood. Everywhere you go, people now. I mean, I told you I got married. Everybody in the world was positive and
welcoming,
loving and welcoming and everything. It was just great. So I see that as a monumental change from in a short period of time. It didn't take 500 years. I don't know if it's 10 years yet that we can get married. So I see those things happening. Sometimes we're concentrated on the negativity because, that happens every day where people in power who remain nameless are always, being negative. We just got told for Pride that we can't, the people can't color the bridges in Pride colors. Well, in one of the bridges, it might have been Jacksonville, 200 people got flashlights and stood for hours with the flashlights on the bridges.
That was amazing.
Amazing. So
it was wonderful to see that.
Yes.
Because it showed that unity is what we can do when we're united.
Right. And there were other cities that defied the law and decided to just show whatever. I think they put the colors in a different order, so they weren't a pride flag, they were just multicolored. So, I mean, people decided, they weren't going to be, screamed at or they weren't going to be told that, they can't be welcoming and loving. And they just found creative ways to do that. So that was really great.
It's interesting that you say that you would like to see more individuals run for office. That has been a common theme throughout all my three guests. You're my third guest, and they all have said the same thing. So really, this is a calling. If there's a common thread in this show, is that we need more of you to participate in running for office. We need more queer legislators. We need more Black, female, queer legislators. We need Hispanic queer legislators, and that's really been the most common theme in this show.
Well, if you watch, I'm a historian by avocation. If you look at Miami Beach, okay, seven seats, 6 and a mayor, but 7 seats, and it was all Jewish for a number of years, and then it started to change, and you've got as more Hispanics settled in Miami Beach and voted, then you began to see maybe a Jewish Hispanic, a Cuban Jew, or you began to see a gay. So now we've had 2 or 3 commissioners in Miami Beach who were elected, who were gay proudly. We have one sitting, Alex Fernandez. We had David Richardson. We had Michael Gongora. So so now the history is there. Other people can run. The same thing with Hispanics. There was no Hispanics in Miami Beach. Matty Bauer and Betty Gutierrez and a number of people came together when I first moved here and began to form committees with Mayor Gelber, not the recent, his father, right. Seymour, and they formed committees and started appointing Hispanics to committees so they could get their feet wet in public service, and then they could run for office. And so you find that happening.
As a former chair of the Hispanic Affairs Committee for the City of Miami Beach, I can vouch for that because yes, we if there's one thing that they do is appoint a lot of individuals to all these boards and committees, and it is a great place where you get your feet wet and where you start getting a taste for it, and that's where you start building your thick skin, because definitely you can sit on these committees. There's some committees that you don't do anything, but then right. there's some committees that you really yes. work, and then these committees, you're doing the work and then you're getting attacked just as well as an elected yes, official,
yes, yes.
So it's a great place to start. It yes. is a great, springboard to public service. But again, the common theme in the show has been, we need more.
Well, that's what America's built on. And it's built on, democracy. It's built on votes. And you have to. People come from other countries and don't understand that. They come from dictatorships and monarchies and all these other things, and it takes them a while to understand how it works here and how you get results. And that's how you get results. It's voting.
It really is. So thank you for bringing that light to, the common thread is yes. on each side. We're talking about, everything, but what is it that you do in itself for yourself? What are you doing? What are you doing nowadays that you're retired? What is George doing? Let's see what George is taking care of. If
you can tell a little bit of my energy just from the show, when I left the Convention Bureau 5 years ago, I thought I would just tell people like you and say, I'm retiring. Everyone did this. Crossed their arms, looked at me and said, well,
what's next?
What are you going to do? And I did not. I thought they'd say, congratulations. No. What are you going to do? You're not sitting at home. And I didn't have anything to say because I was just going to retire. So then I was still working. I still had some, and all my life I've been doing tours, especially in Miami and Miami Beach, when we ran the preservation group, gay tours, all kinds of tours. And so I put a tour program together called Tours R Us after Toys R Us closed. And I do private tours. I do city tours, public tours, any kind of a tour that people want. And I always tell people, if you want a real great tour, if you have people that are visiting, VIPs, elected officials, I'm happy to do that because I have all those years of experience running the Preservation League and then 20 plus years at the Convention Bureau with LGBT and culture. So I have an amazing grasp of Miami and Miami Beach and the history and Overtown and Coconut Grove and Wynwood and the list goes on and on. So I do that, but I also sit in a lot of boards. I sit on the Academy of Hospitality and Tourism, which is a board part of Miami-Dade Public Schools. We raise money to give scholarships to needy students going on to higher education. Not just college, but to other higher education. So we just had the graduation this past year, and I dedicated a scholarship that I created for Danny Diaz from Miami Beach.
Yes, I saw that.
LGBT, yeah. Yes. So we had that scholarship. His parents were there. It was very touching. So I work on that. I sit on the Visitor and Convention Authority, where we give funds to organizations that come to Miami Beach and want to get started with an event. Art Basel, which we gave many years money to, and the South Beach Wine and Food Festival still comes to us, and there's maybe 80 groups all year long that come. Luckily for me, I worked with most of them, so when they come, they already know I'm going to ask about students. What are you doing for students? Are you working with Miami Beach High? I was chairman of DASH for many years, Design and Architecture Senior High School, so I always bring schools in, and many of them do that, but they don't talk about it, and I get them to talk about it, and it's wonderful. All the arts fairs that come during the Art Basel program offer free tickets to students, and they sort of adopt schools so kids could come and see what's going on during that period. So I'm very involved in a lot of community stuff. And of course, I attend the Episcopalian Church on All Souls, and we're having a Pride Mass at the end of the month on Sunday the 30th.
Right.
And it's at 10:30, and it's right next to Walgreens. It's very easy. We'd love for you to come. We're very welcoming. Be a wonderful opportunity for you to come and worship with us, fellowship, friendship. So please, anyone that's aware, please come join us. You'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's All Souls on Miami Beach. George and I are both former members of the vestry of the board of directors, and we're now just parishioners.
Yes.
And it's great just to promote our church, and it's very inclusive. Everybody's welcome. Everybody's welcome to take communion.
Yes.
So it is a very welcoming space and very safe space.
Yes.
So
come join us.
Yes, June 30th at 10:30, the Pride Mass.
And you renegade Catholics, which I'm one, we welcome you all to come and experience what is missing from the other church that we have in abundance, and it's a lot of love.
Yes. Well, George, thank you. It's been a pleasure sitting here.
It's already gone already?
It's already, our time has come. Thank you again for spending time with us, and we appreciate your time, and continue to follow us here at Community News. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Bye-bye.